A previous Iranian official recently warned to transform the Strait of Hormuz into slaughter and inferno for American personnel, and what Iran executed 4 days earlier demonstrates they're not deceiving about obstructing 20% of worldwide oil provisions. Here's what occurred that mainstream sources aren't linking to the financial disaster developing right now. Thursday, February 6th, hours before Friday's diplomatic discussions in Oman, Iran's Revolutionary Guard captured 2 oil vessels near Farsi Island. Fox News disclosed IRGC personnel detained 15 foreign crew personnel, asserting the vessels transported 1 million liters of smuggled energy. But Sequence discloses everything. Why capture vessels Thursday when negotiations commence Friday? Because captures transmit stronger signals than diplomacy ever could. Ezatollah Zarghami, previous Iranian broadcasting director and communications official, rendered Iran's stance crystal obvious that identical Thursday. New York Post recorded his precise warning. I'm confident that the Strait of Hormuz will be the location of slaughter and inferno for the U.S. Pause. Examine those statements again. Not could be, not might transform, will be. Present tense declarative conviction about American personnel encountering slaughter in waters Iran dominates. He maintained, Iran will demonstrate that the Strait of Hormuz has historically belonged to Iran. The only element the Americans can consider is manipulating their vessels and relocating them from one location to another. Translation: America can arrange ships all they desire. The instant combat commences, Iranian personnel transform that restriction point into execution zone for U.S. Navy vessels confined in restricted waters, perfect for asymmetric combat. And here's the device nobody's clarifying that renders Zarghami's warning militarily plausible rather than hollow theater. The strait measures merely 21 miles broad at its narrowest section. Sources verified 1/5 of internationally traded oil transits through. CBS recorded that 25,000-barrel vessels navigate these waters constantly, generating dense maritime activity that limits American naval flexibility. Now envision Iranian anti-vessel rockets, drone craft, and explosives aiming at American warships in waters so confined they cannot efficiently evade. Naval personnel engineered for open ocean combat suddenly function in situations favoring defenders with local understanding and asymmetric capabilities. That's why Zarghami designated it a future slaughter location, because restricted waters remove American technological strengths while optimizing Iranian protective advantages. But Thursday's vessel captures disclose Iran already executing the approach Zarghami warns. They're not waiting for American attacks to seal the strait. They're proving dominance right now through selective implementation against vessels they assert breach Iranian authority. Fox News observed the IRGC alleged ships were component of an organized energy smuggling network functioning for several months. Whether precise or justification matters less than the operational signal. Iranian personnel can obstruct vessels whenever they select, and American naval existence cannot stop it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt verified Friday that discussions advanced despite Thursday's captures, declaring, "Diplomacy is constantly Trump's initial alternative." But that expression discloses American exposure rather than capability. Diplomacy isn't Trump's initial alternative by selection. It's the sole alternative because military options bear unacceptable hazards. If American personnel could safely neutralize Iranian dominance over the strait, Thursday's captures would have activated instant military reaction instead of diplomatic confirmations. The captures, then discussion sequence reveals who genuinely holds pressure. Iran captures vessels Thursday. America maintains diplomatic discussions Friday. Anyway, that's not American capability managing Iranian instigation. That's Iranian capability proving American inability to stop operations endangering worldwide energy markets, and markets comprehend the consequences even if public discourse doesn't. Oil costs surged following capture disclosures despite relatively limited volumes incorporated because traders acknowledged the configuration. Iranian obstruction capabilities are functional. American prevention is collapsing and intensification likelihood rises constantly. CBS disclosed earlier captures extending back years, incorporating the Marshall Islands flagged Terra in November and Portuguese flagged MSC Ares in April 2024. But Thursday's sequence, hours before discussions, indicates strategic communication rather than routine implementation. Iran selected that instant intentionally to prove dominance, to pressure negotiators, to demonstrate American naval existence supplies no security against Iranian operations when Tehran determines implementation benefits its concerns. Zarghami's slaughter and inferno warning isn't theoretical future caution. It's characterization of operational capabilities Iran holds right now. Thursday demonstrated it by capturing vessels while American warships functioned nearby, unable or reluctant to engage. The naval exposure compelling American constraint originates from asymmetric combat actualities nobody addresses openly, but every Pentagon strategist comprehends intimately. American aircraft carriers signify $100 billion floating installations, housing 6,000 naval personnel engineered for projecting capability across oceans against opponents lacking refined anti-vessel capabilities. Devastating when functioning from secure separations against objectives unable to endanger the carrier itself. But Hormuz Strait geography removes secure separations. Carriers must function within distance of Iranian coastal anti-vessel rockets, diesel submarines, rapid assault craft, and drone formations particularly engineered to leverage restricted water exposures. Washington Times recorded that 20% of worldwide oil crosses these waters yearly, rendering closure financially catastrophic. Iran recognizes this, Pentagon recognizes this, and both comprehend American personnel cannot stop closure without hazarding casualties that might render closure irrelevant by activating oil cost surges. Anyway, here's the assessment paralyzing American military reactions. Effective attacks on Iranian atomic installations might delay their capability temporarily, but Iranian counterattack sealing Hormuz, even temporarily, transmits oil costs to $200 per barrel, activating worldwide recession instantly. So America encounters unfeasible selection, attack Iran and absorb financial disaster from Hormuz closure, or acknowledge Iranian atomic progression to prevent financial devastation. Either direction produces strategic collapse. Zarghami's warning leverages this paralysis. He's not forecasting future American losses. He's cautioning present American approach, acknowledges Iranian dominance over Strait, rather than hazard confrontation that collapses worldwide economy, regardless of military results. Thursday's vessel captures evaluated this theory. Would American personnel engage to stop IRGC obstructions, or would diplomatic passages manage what military capability cannot address without catastrophic intensification? Response materialized Friday when discussions advanced as arranged despite Thursday instigations. Diplomacy maintains not because it's functioning, but because options are inferior, and Iran comprehends this flawlessly. That's why captures happened Thursday, particularly to prove American inability before Friday negotiations, confirming who genuinely dominates results. The crew detentions add another pressure dimension. Fox recorded 15 foreign citizens now detained by Iranian powers, pending legal process. Each detained sailor signifies diplomatic burden and political pressure on their home administrations to backing Iranian stances. Release those sailors. Then Iran effectively employed hostages to obtain diplomatic settlements, maintain them detained. Then Iran proves American inability to secure foreign citizens in waters Washington asserts to monitor. Either result discloses American vulnerability rather than capability. That's why Iran selected this approach Thursday before Friday discussions. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Trump's negotiators, materialized in Oman Friday, bearing unfeasible directive. Accomplished diplomatic advancement, stopping Iranian atomic progression without activating Hormuz closure or acknowledging conditions Israel regards capitulation. Good fortune with that, because Iranian negotiators participate those discussions recognizing Thursday's captures demonstrated American personnel won't engage militarily to stop Iranian operations, endangering worldwide oil provisions. That recognition essentially modifies negotiating relationships. When one party can execute operations the other cannot stop without catastrophic repercussions, conventional bargaining pressure disappears. Iran doesn't require American settlements sufficiently to surrender strengths they proved Thursday. The slaughter and inferno expression from Zarghami functions particular psychological objective, implanting casualty visualization into American decision-making assessment. Render military strategists envision particular disaster circumstances, burning carriers, drowned naval personnel, oil costs surging concurrently until paralysis establishes. And its functioning. You can observe paralysis in how American personnel rearranged rather than challenging captures. Naval vessels relocated away from Iranian territorial waters instead of confronting obstructions, efficiently granting dominance to IRGC personnel. Reuters and other sources disclosed American military cautions to Iran about hazardous operations ahead of arranged live firing exercises, but cautions without implementation transform hollow warnings that weaken reliability further. Iran executes genuine captures. America releases cautions about theoretical hazardous operations. That distinction discloses who's dynamically shaping circumstances versus who's reactively complaining about them. The energy smuggling rationale Iran supplied for Thursday's captures generates additional complications. If vessels were legitimately breaching Iranian legislation, then Iran practiced sovereign implementation authority. If assertions are justification, then Iran proved capacity to manufacture rationales that America cannot efficiently contest. Either understanding advantages Iran. Legitimate implementation demonstrates Iranian sovereignty. Manufactured justification demonstrates American helplessness. Both signals benefit Iranian strategic concerns advancing into negotiations. Friday's Oman discussions, now 6 days elapsed, established whether Thursday's instigations were opening waves in intensification sequence or tactical pressure for diplomatic settlement. Early signals recommend neither result materialized obviously. Negotiations maintained past Friday into weekend sessions, suggesting intricacy beyond what single-day conferences could accomplish. But absence of advancement declarations recommends essential separations stay unbridged. Iran's fundamental insistence sanctions elimination, especially concerning oil exports. Trump's fundamental insistence permanent limitations on atomic capability and rocket advancement. These stances stay incompatible because each party regards settlements as existential rather than tactical. For Iran, acknowledging permanent atomic limitations signifies surrendering their fundamental deterrent against American or Israeli attacks. For Trump, removing sanctions without permanent limitations signifies Iran ultimately advances atomic armaments regardless once financial pressure vanishes. Thursday's captures and Zarghami's warnings were Iran stating, "We possess advantages you cannot eliminate militarily. So either negotiate genuinely or observe us prove dominance you cannot contest." The inquiry becomes whether Trump acknowledges this actuality or whether internal political pressures, Netanyahu insistences, Republican advocates, 2026 midterm arranging stop acknowledging diplomatic resolutions that don't produce total Iranian surrender. Early indicators recommend Trump comprehends military alternatives bear restrictive hazards. His administration maintained diplomatic participation despite instigations. That constraint suggests recognition that options are inferior, but Netanyahu materializes Washington this week insisting Trump sanctioned attacks regardless of repercussions. Israeli internal politics, corruption prosecutions, coalition vulnerability, October 7th investigations generate pressures rendering Netanyahu prefer territorial conflict to acknowledging diplomatic resolutions that don't remove Iranian atomic potential permanently. So Trump encounters paradoxical pressures. Military consultants cautioning about Hormuz exposures and financial disaster from oil interruption. Israeli officials insisting attacks regardless. Iranian operations proving American inability to stop their Strait dominance without activating the emergency everyone fears. No beneficial alternatives. Only selections about which inferior result is least catastrophic. The slaughter and inferno expression will haunt decision-making because particular visualization generates reluctance where abstract hazard evaluations might not. Pentagon strategists now envision burning carriers rather than simply assessing likelihood percentages. That psychological effect was Zarghami's objective. Render American officials envision particular catastrophe until paralysis stops operation, even when operation might benefit strategic concerns, and its functioning. Trump could sanction attacks right now. American personnel have strategies prepared, objectives recognized, resources arranged. But he won't instruct attacks because envisioning repercussions, both military and financial, renders that selection politically and strategically unacceptable. Iran has effectively prevented American military operation through combination of proved capabilities, Thursday captures, particular warnings, Zarghami's slaughter cautions, and financial pressure, Hormuz restriction point dominance. This signifies essential capability transformation from decades of American territorial supremacy to Iranian capacity to deliver expenses America won't acknowledge. And once that transformation happens, reversing it becomes nearly unfeasible without intensification neither party genuinely desires. The upcoming 2 weeks establish whether diplomacy can connect unbridgeable separations or whether Thursday's captures were preparation for larger confrontation nobody can stop because everybody's confined by incompatible political requirements. Observe 3 signals. First, whether additional captures happen or whether Thursday signified one-time pressure strategy. Second, whether American naval position transforms to contest Iranian obstructions or maintains preventing confrontation. Third, whether Netanyahu's Washington arrival generates Trump authorization for attacks or simply more ambiguous dedications to all alternatives remaining on agenda. Those signals disclose whether Thursday's circumstances were transformation point toward accommodation or precursor to confrontation that Zarghami forecasted, will render Hormuz slaughter an inferno for American personnel who cannot prevent restricted waters where Iranian strengths transform American exposures. The outline for what occurs next was composed Thursday. America simply hasn't determined which conclusion to select, and Iran recognizes that uncertainty itself is triumph because preserving present path benefits Iranian concerns superior to any diplomatic settlement America might propose. That's why they captured vessels Thursday, then participated for discussions Friday. Not paradox approach. I'm Dav, and this has been 3 Daily News.